Death is nearly inevitable in Hollow Knight, a 2D action platformer Metroidvania, a term coined as a portmanteau of the names of the video game series Metroid and Castlevania. This style of game is centered around exploring a massive open map, hunting for secrets, and finding abilities and items that allow you to reach previously inaccessible areas. This game is no stranger to failure. Players will repeatedly face hostile environments and difficult bosses that may take several tries to get through or defeat. Aubrey Anable explores failure in her chapter, Games to Fail With, in Playing with Feelings, Video Games and Affect. Anable discusses the nature of failure, play, and the aesthetics of failure. Anable aptly puts, "We fail forward, we might tell ourselves, but let's be clear, failure usually feels like just the opposite. Failure is about fucking up." Jesper Juhl also discusses failing in video games, the paradox of failure and the feeling of failure in The Art of Failure, an essay on the pain of playing video games. Hollow Knight is a perfect example of these ideas at play and serves as a good foundation for analysis. Using these ideas surrounding failure, one can explore the nature of the game's seemingly baked-in fail mechanics. Hollow Knight was developed and published by Team Cherry and released on Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, and Linux in 2017. The player controls a silent, nameless insect-like knight that explores the fictional underground ancient kingdom of Hallownest. The kingdom is separated into areas with unique themes. The Bug Knight wields a nail, which is a type of sword that they use for combat and world interaction. This game garnered recognition for not only how detailed its character designs are and the beautiful score behind the scenes, but also how dense and expansive the subterranean kingdom is. In terms of gameplay, the character starts with a limited number of masks, which represents the hit points. Mask shards can be collected throughout the game to increase the player's maximum health. When the knight takes damage from an enemy or from the environment, a mask is reduced. By striking enemies, the knight gains soul, which is stored in the soul vessel. If all masks are lost, the knight dies and a shade appears where they died. The player loses all Geo, the in-game currency, and can hold a reduced amount of soul. Players need to defeat the shade to recover the lost currency and to carry the normal amount of soul. Even to recover your lives back requires players to fight tooth and nail to restore themselves. Many reviewers have ironically praised Hollow Knight for its difficulty. YouTuber Rusty gives tips for new players, and one tip is that players are going to die a lot, as that is the nature of the game. Adam Abu Nazir wrote for the Nintendo World Report, "The first boss was so incredibly difficult that I was immediately filled with regret over having asked to review this game. I died so many times I thought he was a gate requiring a new item to pass, but I kept trying." Despite his continuous failure, Abu Nasir remained vigilant and kept pushing forward. Players fall into a paradox when repeatedly failing and reattempting a video game, and Jesper Juhl outlines this with 3 points. 1. We generally avoid failure. 2. We experience failure when playing video games. And 3. We seek out games although we will experience something that we normally avoid. To avoid failure, but actively experience it and seek it out through difficult gaming is a testament to how powerful games can be to create a space of neutrality where failure is okay. Anable determines that part of the pleasure that video games usually afford is the experience of redeeming initial failure with success. The game promises that through repetition we might arrive at graceful mastery. Western society encourages this pursuit of success, even if it means failure. Anable often quotes, "One fails forward towards success," noting the capitalist dependency on failure and the requirement of a certain level of optimism in order to quell any revolution. Video games are special because, in other digital encounters, failure would simply be frustrating, and sometimes it is frustrating in games. But part of the appeal of video games is that they transport our everyday digital failures into the realm of play. This yearning for success is only heightened with the experience of failure. Juhl puts this failure paradox to the test and performs a case study with 85 players and asks them to rate the game after they play it. He confirms that although players attempt to avoid failure, if they failed at least once, then they gave a more positive evaluation and had a better appreciation for the game. This is why players like Abu Nasir keep trying. He writes, While at first the grueling distance between checkpoints and the painful punishment for perishing seemed unfair, it eventually clicked. I lived for the tension. I became hardcore. Hollow Knight is not about exploration, I discovered, but about persevering. The perseverance mentioned echoes Samuel Beckett's sentiment: try again, fail better. Shame and its relationship to failure is another idea Enable's work explores. Enable actually references Jesper Juul's art of failure. Juul argues that failure is an essential aspect of every video game and video games as a medium. Juul relates video game failure to other types of painful entertainment, the tragic novel, the horror film, as safe containers for painful feeling. Experiencing failure through these mediums allows players to feel shame and/or anger, which can be easily dismissed because it is only a game. What keeps players coming back to games like Hollow Knight is their inability to give up the desire to win, to succeed, to achieve the good life. Because Hollow Knight is a difficult game, it allows players to experience this shame-fueled desire through repeated failure. Juul explores the feeling of failure and returns to his case study. The game was rated higher by players who felt personally responsible for their own failure. This leads to him concluding, it is only through feeling responsible for failure, which we dislike, that we can feel responsible for escaping failure, which we do like. Hollow Knight provides difficult areas and enemies that create a perfect environment for personal failure and eventual success. The grand sense of achievement is only earned when players repeatedly fall on spikes or die to a particularly difficult bug boss. The aesthetics of failure is another idea explored in Enable's chapter. Failure aesthetics is usually correlated to glitchy, janky, or pixelated imagery as they go against or fail to meet the standards of classic video game aesthetics. She analyzes two game developers and their games, Pippin Bar and Messhof. Their seemingly simple games, in both form and function, are actually clever methods to subvert the perception of easy gameplay. While Hollow Knight in both form and function is neither pixelated or janky, Vicky Blake for Eurogamer.net comments on the subversiveness of Hollow Knight's aesthetics, stating, "Sure, it may look super cute, but beneath the quirky covers it is ruthlessly tough and even occasionally unfair." The simple, cute 2D style in combination with the straightforward game controls can be argued to be exactly what Enable talks about as fitting under the aesthetics of failure. Enable elaborates that the interplay between images and mechanics is a core feature of how the games I discuss in this chapter express failure. The images are not secondary in their effective mediations on failure, rather they are the first point of contact and condition our ambivalent responses. Coming across a simple game, whether in style or mechanics, can create a false sense of security as these styles are reminiscent of older games. However, the smooth, dark, cute cartoon style of Hollow Knight is not a reflection of the difficulty of the game. Overall, Hollow Knight is hailed as one of the best indie games to come out despite its known difficulty. It is the perfect example of Enable's game to fail. The aesthetics of the game give the experience of repeated failure an addictive, pleasurable quality because of the simple mechanical and visual design. The shame-fueled desire to defeat those difficult bosses make the failure more palatable for players. The nature of the video game medium allows players to turn their failures into a form of play. It is an example of Juul's paradox of failure at play, where failure only enhances the experience and appreciation for the game. The yearn for success propels players through constant failure towards the eventual and satisfying success. So as you set off into the murky depths of Hollownest to valiantly reclaim your shade, remember to have fun and fail often.